There we go. Now we're on.
Okay, great. Well, good evening and welcome to our March meeting. A few announcements before we get started. Grants. We awarded 2 Margaret Williams Research Grants this year. One was to Samantha Ingram to support unraveling the taxonomic and phylogenetic complexity of Ericomeria parrii. Okay, I've got to click OK. Anyway, she's in the Western US. And the other is to Chloe Novak to support a flora of the Amargosa River headwaters in Nye County. So congratulations to the recipients and thank you to the grant committee for reading the applications and awarding the grants. Northern Nevada, why is that didn't go away? Oh, it does now. We had a good meeting, field trip planning meeting in Northern Nevada last month. I've started to put the dates on the website calendar. It's really saved the dates. I've done most of them. So, and I know Southern Nevada are planning some field trips, but it's been so dry down there. I really don't know what's going to be happening down there, but Marcus might well tell us later. I have a request from our newsletter editor. Alison would like to know if anyone is interested in writing a book review for the new Mary Winters Field Guide. It doesn't have to be long, but it would be great since that is a book that we've paid to publish, and nice to have a review of it. The board sent out an email to members recently about the impacts of federal cuts on our plants and people. If you haven't had a chance to reply, there is still time. No names will be included in any notes that we put together. We would like to put together just a few talking points in case people want to contact their representatives, because it's not good for our environment at the moment. But on to more fun news. April meeting. Oh, there's Chloe. She missed being congratulated. Our April meeting will be our 50th anniversary birthday party. Native Plant Society, the inaugural meeting was April 17th, 1975. We are going to hold our monthly meeting the same date, the first Thursday of the month, but we will be having cake. It'll be a slightly different format. We're going to start the meetings at 6:30 and do a bit of a slideshow of some old photos. Then at 6:45, I'll do the introductions, and we're going to be interviewing some of our members. Then there'll be a short Q&A session. Then there will be cake and more slideshow. So hopefully come to one of the in-person meetings. There'll be cake in Henderson and cake up here if you can. Otherwise, we might have to send you a recipe so you can make your own cake if you're on video. Does anyone else have any comments or announcements they'd like to make? Connie, you do, don't you?
Just a brief one for those of you.
You need to come up here, Connie. Sorry.
Let's see.
There you are. Yep.
I've been pruning my belongings, and when I prune my books, I usually take them to the library book sale. But I thought I'd bring this one in case anyone wants it, since it's plant related. This is called Field Days in California by Bradford Torrey, 1913 edition. If anyone would like to take it home with you, feel welcome.
Thank you. Marcus, do you have any comments? Oh, anyone down there?
Comments. We still have the field trip planned for June, going to be for the test site. I'll send out information about that in a few weeks to months. It does take about a month to get permission to get onto the test site. So there is going to be some paperwork involved if you're interested, but it should be a good opportunity.
Oh, that does sound great.
Yeah.
Oh, Susie, if you need to come up here. Anyone else online got any announcements they'd like to make? We have got one more in the room here. Susie is just coming to the front.
Okay, so I just want to let you know there's going.
You have to come over. Kind of. There we are.
I prefer to stay off.
No. There you are. You're on. Okay.
Okay. I just want to let you know that the Master Gardeners of Douglas County are holding a native plant sale. Again, this year it's going to be on May 17th at the River Fork Nature Conservancy in Genoa. So we're gonna have a lot of good stuff if anyone's interested.
Oh, the reason I groaned is because that's when the May Arboretum plant sale is this year. I know they moved it. Last year it clashed with Washoe Valley Celebration.
I can do both of them.
But people can do both of them. I know, but if they're volunteering at the May Arboretum, it'll be more difficult. But anyway, so if there's no more announcements, thank you, Susie. I go ahead and introduce you, Michael. You can sit
Okay.
patiently. Michael G. Simpson is Professor Emeritus at the Department of Biology, San Diego State University. He's also curator of the herbarium there. He's a co-instructor of field botany of San Diego County and works on floristic studies, including several voucher and iNaturalist-based checklists in Southern California. He actively studies the taxonomy and phylogeny of the popcorn flowers, subtribe, and I'll probably mask this, the Amsinckiinae of the Boraginaceae. In the past 4 years alone, he has co-described 6 new species of Cryptantha. Finally, he continues studies on American amphitropic disjunct plants, those that occur in North and South America on either side of the tropics. So welcome, Michael. We look forward to your presentation.
Very good. Well, thank you for the introduction. You're Emma, is that correct?
Yeah.
By the way, your celebration was on April 17th. That's my birthday. But I was born a little before 1975, though. Okay, I'll share my screen. I'll give it a shot.
That's it. There you go.
Everybody see it? And I always have to fiddle with these. I'll just leave it the way it is. Okay,
Emma,
well, you
what-
you okay? Everybody see it?
I just wanted to check, make sure. Can you see it, Emma?
Everybody see it?
Emma's
good to hear.
on mute.
Yes, we can see it.
We
Okay,
can see it. I was just trying to work out to take the top tab off so that we can see all of it, but yes, we can see it. Thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Well, now I can't see it. So 1 second. I did something. Let me try again. There.
You got it.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks again for inviting me. Yeah, it was Marcus who I think first suggested, hey, why don't you give a talk on the Cryptantha of Nevada? And it sounded intriguing because I had never really looked at, what Cryptantha and relatives occur in Nevada. So my presentation is probably much too long, so I'm going to skip over a few things because I really wanted to see everything that occurs in Nevada in our group. So I'll get started with that presentation. Let me make sure I can, there we go. So that's the title, the Cryptantha of Nevada. I'm going to talk a little bit about the classification of the popcorn flowers as we call our group. So not sure how much to go into detail with the Boraginaceae. Probably most of you know the family. And I just want you to be aware that the circumscription definition of the family has varied over the years. Most recently, the Angiosperm phylogeny group has elected to merge everything in what had been called the Boraginales into the Boraginaceae sensu lato. And this is, what iNaturalist uses as well. But the experts in the group followed this classification by Lubert et al. In 2016, in which upwards of 11 families are recognized in that group. 9 to 11, it depends on the circumscription. And so the way we're using the family Boraginaceae is based on that classification. So it's a more restricted definition of the family. And we feel that hopefully APG will come around and recognize these other families as well. So the Boraginaceae, as we're defining it, is more easily recognized. And I think you guys know that, the corollas of the family are all have fused petals or sympetals. They can be rotate or salviform. And they'll have a scorpioid cyme as seen on the right, which may or may not be circinate. Typically it is, so circinate means coiled, if you didn't know that term. So in addition to that, now we have the Boraginaceae being very well defined in having a four-lobed ovary. During development, the two carpels become divided, and you end up with four lobes, each containing a single seed. Now, you can have a reduction in the number of ovules and seeds in some groups, but typically there are four, and each of those units develops into what we call a nutlet. So the whole fruit is a schizocarp of nutlets. In addition, I wanted to point this out down on the lower right. You can see this structure here that is found in some members of our group called a gynobase. I'll mention that later. And the style is what is known as gynobasic. It goes all the way down to the base of those ovary lobes. So now we have a pretty well-defined, morphologically defined family. And in terms of the group that I study, which is called the subtribe Amsinckiinae, I just wanted to mention that it has been known to be a very not well circumscribed in terms of morphology, but a well-supported monophyletic group for some time. So this group is monophyletic within the large family Boraginaceae. There are no really known morphological synapomorphies for our group, but there are within it, of course. So we study this subtribe, the subtribe Amsinckiinae, based on the genus Amsinckia. And it's a pretty large group, 17 genera, 307 species within our group. And we co-opted the name popcorn flower for the entire group. We sort of stole that name to refer to our entire subtribe. Now, I did want to mention that in this subtribe, there are a fair number of species, 85 species in 7 different genera that occur in South America. A few of these occur in both continents, but usually they're restricted to one or the other. I'll talk briefly at the end about that. And I did want to mention as well that I got interested in plotting the distribution of some of these popcorn flowers in Nevada and use this map with these ecoregions, Northern Basin and Range, Central Basin and Range, Mojave Basin and Range, and Sierra Nevada. And you guys can talk more about, how firm these ecoregions are. But in a few cases, you can see some interesting trends in distribution. So this represents the suite of nutlet morphology in our group, the popcorn flowers. I think they're beautiful. They range tremendously in size and shape and sculpturing pattern, the number per fruit, and then a feature called heteromorphism. In terms of size, I calculated that the largest nutlet, which is close to the one on your upper left, is 5,000 times the volume of the smallest nutlet, which is probably Johnstonella grayi, not really illustrated here, but one of the Johnstonella species that occurs in Baja California. So that's quite a difference in the size of nutlets. And it may be a resource allocation. Some species produce fewer and larger propagules, others produce more propagules that are smaller. But that's an interesting topic in itself. Now, the genus Cryptantha is shown in the upper part of this slide. It has traditionally been defined in having nutlets with this ventral groove, which you can see at the arrows, a slit-like structure arising from the attachment scar down below. Whereas something like Plagiobothus below has what we call a ventral ridge. But we, in 2012, and in a more recent article in 2017, discovered that Cryptantha, as it had been defined, is highly polyphyletic. And it's illustrated in red on the right part of this cladogram. So I wanted to briefly go over all of the genera that occur in Nevada, and particularly all of the ones that used to be in Cryptantha do occur in Nevada as well. So first of all, there are these genera, Remocaria and Greeniocaris, that were pulled from Cryptantha by us. However, these two genera were named before 1900, so they've been around for a while. We just resurrected them. The old timers actually got it right. And here they are. This is a Remocaria, and a Remocaria micrantha variety of Micrantha occurs in Nevada. And it's a little thing, it's a cushion plant. It has reddish roots and bracts on the flowers. If you can see my cursor, there's some flower bracts. The red roots are found in a few Boraginaceae. They have concentrations of a chemical compound, a class of compounds known as naphthoquinones. And interestingly, those naphthoquinones might have medicinal properties and were used by some Native Americans as a colorant to like color their face. Kids used them for fun hundreds of years ago. And this is Greeniocorus, which originally we thought must be a close relative of Aremocaria because it's so similar in plant habit. It also has red roots, but you can see here, if you can see my cursor that the calyx of Greeniocorus circumcissa, aptly named specific epithet, is circumcissal. It splits transversely. And so it was a bit of a surprise to learn that these two are not closely related. They do have very different nutlets, in addition to those other features being different from one another. So here are the two side by side that occur in Nevada, a single variety of each of these species. And here's how they are distributed in Western North America and Nevada. You can see Greeniocorus is more widespread in Nevada. And Aremocaria is not so common in Nevada. It occurs in the southeastern part, a little bit in the northwestern part, if those are correctly identified. So I don't see any real pattern of distribution with respect to ecoregions. So that's two genera that used to be in Cryptantha that occur in Nevada, Greeniocorus and Aremocaria. Another genus is called Johnstonella. This was another one that we resurrected. This is a picture of Johnstonella racemosa, which is the type species for the genus. And it was described some time ago as well, before the 1900s. And here are all the species of Johnstonella that occur in North America, with the ones that occur in Nevada with a red asterisk. There are 5 of these species in Nevada. And Johnstonella is an interesting genus. It has kind of a center of distribution in Baja California, actually. And you'll notice that some of the nutlets are what we call heteromorphic. They have 1 large and typically 3 smaller ones, as in Inequata here and racemosa right there. 2 of those occur in Nevada. Typically, the nutlets have white tubercles, one way you can recognize them, but they can have either rounded margins or they can have sharp margins. Some of them are even winged, like this Johnstonella holoptera. So I just wanted to expose you to Johnstonella. I don't want to talk much more about them, but here's how they distribute in Western North America. You see they're more southern, kind of southwestern in distribution, and only in the southern part of Nevada do they occur in your state, in that Mojave Basin and Range area. And so, then they are desert species, so that makes sense. And the last of these segregate genera from Cryptantha is called Oreocaria. Don't know if you're familiar with that new genus name. It again is an old genus name. It was described before the 1900s. And this is the distribution of Oreocaria. It is more montane in distribution. It occurs, the center of diversity is really the Rocky Mountains and some of the montane regions west of the Rockies. So it's less well represented in the extreme western part of North America. And Oreocaria, which means mountain fruit in Latin, they're all perennial plants. And the North American Cryptantha are all annuals. So that's one big difference between Oreocaria and Cryptantha per se. But another thing we noticed is that the ventral groove in Oreocaria species only goes part way up. It's what we call subapical, whereas in Cryptantha and these other 3 genera, the ventral groove goes all the way to the apex. And recall that the ventral groove was the defining characteristic of Cryptantha originally. Here are the 23 species of Oriocarya that occur in Nevada. Aren't they beautiful nutlets? Nevada actually has nearly double the number of species of Oriocarya that California has, which has about 14. So I'm not going to talk any more about these. They are a wonderful group. They're all perennials. I find them a little difficult to identify, in part because when you see the plant that's in flower, they usually don't have any mature nutlets. You have to go back later. It's hard to get both at the same time, whereas that's easy in Cryptantha. But look at that Oriocarya cetosystem, and that's my favorite with that huge encircling wing. And here I just got a distribution map of the Oriocarya that occur only in Nevada. So you can see they're all over the place. If you were look at them closely, you might see some distributional trends. Okay, so that's the 4 segregate genera of Cryptantha. So very quickly, I wanted to go over the other genera of our group that occur in Nevada. Some of these you may well be familiar with, and one of them is the genus Pectocarya. These are the comb seeds. They have a very different morphology, having 4 nutlets that are divergent or horizontal in orientation with that X-type pattern. Very unique. These are the 6 species of Pectocarya that occur in Nevada. And you can see that the fruits differ from one another. I think pretty easy to recognize these when you study, if you have mature fruits. But they vary quite a bit in sculpturing pattern. This heterocarpa to your upper left is a heteromorphic one with 2 nutlets being different from the other 2. Again, each of those arms coming out is a single nutlet that contains 1 seed within it. And you can see many of them are winged. Some have these hook-shaped bristles. Setosa is one of my favorites. It has this transparent wing surrounding the nutlets. And then recurvata is aptly named, being strongly recurved. So I mapped these out, and you can see a few trends with regard to the 6 species where they're distributed in these ecoregions of Nevada. I won't elaborate on that, but you can see, for example, the red Pectocarya platycarpa, which is a desert floor species, and recurvata occur in the southern part of the state in the Mojave Basin and Range. Amsinckiinae is the genus that our subtribe is named after, and many of you know the fiddlenecks. And you may not know that Amsinckiinae, all of them have an interesting morphological synapomorphy called, well, they have cotyledons in the embryo, you can see that in the upper right, that are 2-lobed. And that's very rare. It's not found in any other popcorn flower other than a few South American Cryptantha, evolved independently there. And all the Amsinckias have orange or yellow-orange flowers. So they're fairly discrete in terms of their morphology. There are 4 species of Amsinckiinae in Nevada. There they are. You often will need some calyx features, whether the sepals are fused or not, like they are in Tessellata, or corolla and stamen insertion features, like you would need for Lycopsoides to identify Amsinckiinae. But Amsinckiinae is interesting in that it's kind of weedy. It is a pest in a lot of areas of the world, particularly Australia, where it has escaped. And they are pests both to livestock. Livestock can eat them and actually be harmed by them. The fruits and calyces can get in the wool of sheep and kind of mess it up. And then also Amsinckiinae species can outcompete or compete with wheat. They can reduce the yield of wheat. So that's a big problem crop species in Australia. I think there are 3 species actually that occur in Australia that are problematic. And so here is the distribution of just those 4 species of Amsinckiinae, and you can see where they occur in Nevada, and you can see a few trends. Tessellata is more in the southern part of the state. that is a good desert species, whereas Rachorsa is more in the northern part of the state, and the other two are more scattered. Okay, so we're working our way through this for the popcorn flower group. Next is the genus Plagiobothris, which some of you may know. And this, I mentioned, was defined earlier on by the dorsal ridge arising from the attachment scar. But I wanted to point out as well that in purple over to the right are genera that have been either created or resurrected from Plagiobothris, because my colleague Matt Williams and others discovered that Plagiobothris is polyphyletic as well. So one of the genera that they resurrected is called Sonia, and these are the two species of Sonia in front of you. They are Sonia glomerata and Sonia hispida. They both have nutlets with attachment scars above the middle, so they are morphologically defined, and they were actually resurrected from the genus Sonia. They were classified in Sonia a long time ago by Green, and so my colleagues just resurrected them from the literature. And here's how the Sonia are distributed. You see, there are not many Sonias in Nevada, but interestingly, Sonia glomerata, you can see it in that little western corner of the state of Nevada, is either an endemic species to Nevada or a near endemic. So it may be endemic to Nevada. It's mostly in that Sierra Nevada section. I did find one collection of Sonia glomerata in Mono County in California, but that has yet to be corroborated. So this may be an endemic to Nevada. Sonia hispida is just represented by a few populations. Another couple of genera that used to be in Plagiobothris, I'll describe as follows. Again, my colleague Matt Williams, who studied Plagiobothris for his dissertation, discovered that two species of Plagiobothris are actually more closely related to Amsinckiinae than they are to the other Plagiobothris. And since we want our genera to be monophyletic, you either combine them or you split them. And because Amsinckiinae has these two very good morphological features uniting them, they elected to separate them from the genus Plagiobothris so that they would be monophyletic, and they decided to create new genera. And here are the genera. One of them is called Amsinckiopsis, kingii, instead of Plagiobothris. And then they, without my knowledge, they named one of them after me, Simpsonanthus jonesii. So I'm associated with Marcus Jones, who I understand was a scoundrel of a botanist, but he was a good botanist. Okay, so we have two new genera that used to be Plagiobothris. Here's Amsinckiopsis. I won't go into the features of it much, but it has a fairly distinctive nutlet morphology. But look at the sculpturing of it. Compare that with Simpsonanthus jonesii, which has a very different sculpturing, but a similar attachment scar. And I will also go ahead and show you the Plagiobothris, what's left over in the genus, that occur in Nevada. And I hope some of you know Plagiobothris if you've gone on field trips. There are, these are the species of Plagiobothris in Nevada. You know, I can't read my upper screen, so can't read the number of species that occur there. But anyway, they are, there they are. They are also diverse in nutlet morphology, and in Plagiobothris, the attachment scar is a little more important in identification. So, but you can see, I think, the range in nutlet morphology that occurs in this genus. And so what I did was I mapped out all of these in one map in Nevada that occur in Nevada, including those segregate genera, Amsinckiopsis and Simpsonanthus. And you can see some trends of distribution, particularly that Simpsonanthus is more concentrated in the southern part of the state, and Amsinckiopsis in the more central part of the state, in the central basin and range. So it would take a long time to go through the Plagiobothris, so I just wanted to expose you to them. So that leaves the topic of my talk, Cryptantha. That's the only other genus remaining that occurs in our popcorn flower group in Nevada. And Cryptantha means hidden flower, but not because the flowers are small, but because they are cleistogamous. And I'll show you a picture of that. And they're cleistogamous in some species in South America, including the type species. This is the largest genus of the Amsinckiinae and one of the largest genera of the Boraginaceae, with 111 species total. And this shows a picture that I took in Chile of the type species of Cryptantha glomerata, showing these little cleistogamous flowers, which are, if you don't know that term, these are flowers that don't open up. They remain in the bud stage in terms of the perianth, but the sexual parts do mature. So this forces self-pollination in a cleistogamous flower. So that's where Cryptantha actually gets its name, hidden flower. This is the distribution of all the Cryptantha in the world. You can see they're concentrated in Western North America in terms of collections. This is from GBIF, but there are many species in South America, as I mentioned before. And I've been able to travel to Chile and Argentina to collect these. They also occur a few in Bolivia and a few in Peru. Just wanted to mention, and I'll show you more pictures of Cryptantha nutlets. These are the nutlets of Cryptantha. And typically, when you key out species of Cryptantha, the first couplet of the key is whether the nutlets are rough or smooth. And I'll show you pictures very quickly of the rough nutlet Cryptantha. All of these occur in North America. These are all rough. Some of them are rougher than others, but you can see a little bit of sculpturing in all of them. Versus smooth, and these are all of the smooth Cryptantha that occur in North America. So this is one of the features one uses in identification, but the nutlets also vary tremendously in shape and size and other features of the attachment scar. Another thing we look at in identifying Cryptantha is the ventral groove and that structure called an areole, that little cavity at the base of the nutlet, of the backside of the nutlet, what's called the ventral surface. The calyx size and shape and vestiture can be very important identification, and the stem vestiture is important. All Cryptantha have oppressed trichomes, strigose trichomes, or hispid trichomes that are horizontal, or both. So they can have either or both of those trichome types. That can be quite important in identification. In addition, the relative length of the style arising from that structure I mentioned before, the gynal base, can be important relative to the nutlet height. That can actually be quite important in identification of some taxa. And I just wanted to mention real quickly that in terms of evolution, we know from the work of one of my former students now with her own PhD, Mackenzie Mabry, that the smooth nutlets of Cryptantha evolved multiple times. The black dots and to the left and the cladogram are smooth nutlet taxa. And so the rough nutlets of Cryptantha are the ancestral feature. And they're the ancestral feature really for the entire group. In addition, we have this interesting feature called heteromorphism that I mentioned with Johnstonella in some Cryptanthas, well, in which one nutlet is different from the other three. So you can see in Cryptantha pterocharia that I'll mention later, one nutlet is quite different from the other three. And here we have the species of Cryptantha that occur in Nevada. 28 of those 111 species are present in Nevada. So it was fun for me to see what occurs in your state and then to actually map some of these out. So I don't have time to go through all of these, but I'll touch on a few of them. And I did want to mention that we are in the process of classifying Cryptanthas infragenerically into subgenera and series. And this will be a first attempt at that, and with modern phylogenetic methodology. Now, one thing that, with regard to this classification is the fact that Cryptantha, what's left over in Cryptantha after you split off the other four genera, is still occurs in two groups. And one of these groups in the upper right, we call the Meridime clade. The other one contains the bulk of the genus Cryptantha, just Cryptantha SS. Now, this is a chloroplast cladogram, a chloroplast tree. When you look at the nuclear ribosomal, a different type of sequence data, you see that these two clades are actually sister taxa. The problem that we're having is that the backbone of our tree is weak. These clades in different colors are well supported, 100% values, but their interrelationships are not that well supported. And you see this in other groups as well. And there are various explanations for it. But for now, we're not willing to separate these two clades into separate genera. We think for now, we're going to treat them both in the genus Cryptantha. So one of these we're going to, we think, call the subgenus Meridime. That'll be a big hunk of Cryptantha. And here are all the species in that subgenus. And the one in red is the only one that occurs in Nevada. The ones in purple over to the left all occur only in South America. So let's first take a look at this single species, Cryptantha meridima, that occurs in Nevada. Cryptantha meridima is an interesting species. It's kind of different and from other Cryptantha. It has bracteate flowers that you can see right here. And it also has smooth or rough netlets. And it's classified into different varieties. My colleague John Redman and I wrote a paper on these fairly recently, sorting out the varieties. And like I said, the nutlets are either smooth or they're heteromorphic with one smooth and 1 to 3 rough ones. So there are two major varieties that occur in North America, and the one to the right is variety pilosa. That is the one that occurs in Nevada. I don't think there are any records of variety meridima, but you can see they're very different. They differ primarily in the trichomes, the vestiture of the calyx. Oops. So here's how they map out in actually all of North America. And you can see in Nevada, there aren't many collections of Cryptantha meridima, but what you do have is, I think, all this other variety pilosa, Cryptantha meridima variety pilosa, which you can see is more common to the east, whereas variety meridima is more common to the west, although the two varieties do intermix in the Southern California quite a bit. There are two other varieties that are restricted to Baja California, you can see below. Interestingly, we know that Cryptantha, this variety that occurs in Nevada, was distributed long distance, dispersed long distance to Argentina. We estimate about 0.92 million years ago. And this is based on our sequence data and methods for dating those divergence patterns. In addition, the other members of this series, the ones that all occur in South America, dispersed independently over 5 million years ago. So this is an example of what I'll talk about later, an American amphitropic disjunct plant, the variety that occurs in Nevada. Now, one other thing I want to mention, this other series, Muricatae, in what we're calling the subgenus Cryptantha, has a species that was recently described by Jim Andre, myself, and my son, Lee, just in December of last year. There it is, and it's fairly distinctive. It's definitely closely related to Cryptantha muricata, but there are no known collections in Nevada. There's one, actually, I guess it's one or two collections at multiple herbaria collected 5 miles east of the Nevada-Arizona border. So I'll bet you that this does occur in Nevada. You just got to find it. Okay, if you're with me, that is one of the subgenera of Cryptantha. The other subgenus of Cryptantha we will call subgenus Cryptantha. And we're going to split it into 10 series. And like I said, I'll go through a few of these examples. It's too much to go through in one presentation, but just to give you a flavor for some of the variation in netlet morphology, how these plants are told apart, and how they're related to one another, how they're distributed. So we'll look first at this series Aphiines, as it's called. And what I'm pointing out is within the series, what occurs in Nevada is in red. So there are two species that occur in Nevada. And this is one of them. This is Cryptantha aphinus, the side-grooved Cryptantha, a really pretty plant, but has tiny little corollas. You can see right there. There's the whole plant. And there's some shots of the morphology of the stem and leaves. But what's distinctive about Cryptantha aphinus are the nutlets. They appear to be, or they are asymmetric in shape. The ventral groove that I talked about is off center and appears to be along the margin of the nutlets. That's why it's called the side-grooved Cryptantha. Here's the distribution of a Cryptantha aphinus. You see it's almost entirely in the central part of the state, in that central basin and range area of Nevada. But this one's the species is fairly widely distributed in Western North America, does get into southern Canada. And another species I'll mention real quickly of that complex is quite different. This is Cryptantha decipiens, but it also has tiny corollas, what we call inconspicuous, but very different nutlets. You can see that they're tuberculate. They have tubercles that point upwards. It's only one nutlet per fruit, unlike 4 and aphinus. And here's the distribution of Cryptantha decipiens. It is a not uncommon high desert species, I would call it. And it's not a surprise that it's mostly concentrated in the southern part of the state, but there are some populations in the eastern part of Nevada. Okay, that was one of the series, Cryptantha aphinus and the Cryptantha decipiens that occur in Nevada. Here are some other species that occur in Nevada in this series Ambigui, and I'll mention a couple of them. This is Cryptantha ambigua. Interestingly, it was named exactly as you might think. The person who named it, Asa Gray, actually thought it was ambiguous compared to some other Cryptanthas. Apparently, he had difficulty distinguishing it from others, and I do too sometimes. But there it is. It has typically 4 nutlets. It also has small corollas. These are the nutlets close up. And this is the distribution in Nevada, also in the western part of North America. So you can see it's kind of scattered, mostly in the central part of the state. And this is interesting. This is another Cryptantha toriana that you look at it, it also has small corollas, but the nutlets are very different from ambigua. They're smooth and shiny, and they have kind of a flattened dorsal side. This is Cryptantha toriana, and it is actually a very close relative of Cryptantha ambigua. There are 2 varieties of Cryptantha toriana. This variety, pumila, has smaller nutlets. It's found only restricted to parts of coastal California. But these 2 species are, from our data, are known to be each other's closest relative. And interestingly, it's been reported that these 2 can hybridize when they co-occur. I've never seen the hybrids or specimens of them, but that's been reported. So it makes sense that they would be each other's closest relative. There's the distribution of Cryptantha toriana, pretty widely distributed in central and northern Nevada, and really widely distributed throughout Western North America. And it does also occur in Canada. And this is the only Cryptantha that also occurs in the state of Alaska. Okay. Okay, if you're with me, I'll mention one other Cryptantha that occurs in Nevada. This is Watsoniae, related to those two, but more distant related. And this is not uncommon in desert localities in Western North America. It has smooth nutlets, just like Toriana, but they're smaller. They're different in shape, and they tend to have, well, they do have a sharp angled margin to the nutlets. So you kind of get a feel for some of the characters we use to distinguish these taxa. And in terms of where it's found, Cryptantha watsonia is actually pretty widely distributed in the central and northern part of the state. And you can see it, it's also widely distributed north and northeast of Nevada and in the extreme eastern part of California. I've seen it in the White Mountains, for example. Okay, so we're making our way through some of the groups of Cryptantha. I'll talk about a few more. And one of them is the series Barbigerae. And one of the species that occurs in Nevada is Cryptantha barbigera itself, variety Barbigera. And I have as a question mark Cryptantha intermedia that I'll talk about in a second. But Barbigera, the bearded Cryptantha, is in Nevada. These are some specimen pictures of Barbigera. And it has relatively long calyces. They're long for a Cryptantha, typically 6 to 8 or more millimeters long. And Barbigera is very hispid, very bristly. It can get fairly large, and it's one of those Cryptantha, when you grab it, you'll go ouch. Here it is in the field, and it's named Barbigera because of the dense trichomes that occur along the calyx margins. They're denser than most. They're these fine trichomes on the calyx, whereas the stems and leaves have fairly hispid, stiff trichomes. It does have very tuberculate to what we call muricate nutlets, very different from what we've seen before. One of the defining characters of this species is the very rough appearance of the nutlets in Barbigera. And this is the distribution. It's not very common in Nevada in terms of collections, but most of them occur, again, in the southern part of the Mojave basin of the state of Nevada. Now, Cryptantha intermedia has been reported in Nevada. It can be recognized in having 3 of these inflorescence units in the primary stems, what we call trifurcate cymules in the vernacular. And they're the nutlets. They're more similar to Barbigera, but not as tuberculate, not as rough as Barbigera. But I don't think that intermedia occurs in Nevada. There are 2 varieties of Cryptantha intermedia that we're recognizing, variety Johnstonii and variety intermedia. And they differ in some stem vestiture features and in the orientation of the fruits. Also, the distribution of variety Johnstonii is much more coastal than intermedia. So I think that what is reported in herbaria that occur in Nevada is actually what had been called variety Hendersonii and variety grandiflora. They just haven't been annotated yet. And I'll talk about those. We've elevated both of those to species status. And in fact, our molecular data shows that they're not real closely related. So I think that was a good call. So Cryptantha intermedia needs to be checked, probably not in Nevada. Now this one is in Nevada. This is Cryptantha dumatorum, and it is probably the most unique Cryptantha of them all. This is a sprawling Cryptantha. It grows typically under desert shrubs and will germinate in the spring. This is an annual, like all Cryptantha are annuals. It sprawls on the mother shrub that it grows under and has some unique features, but one of them is the nutlet morphology. Look at those nutlets. Cryptantha dumatorum has heteromorphic nutlets, and one large one with these really wide attachment scars. The ventral groove is very wide, and 3 small ones to your right. both of them are similar in shape, a little bit similar in sculpturing. They differ a bit. And not only is Cryptantha dumatorum unique in the genus, but it also is kind of on its own in terms of its phylogenetic relationships. That's why we're placing it tentatively in its own series. In our phylogenetic analyses, all of them, it comes out on a long branch in between the other Cryptantha. So we don't know what it's closely related to tell you the truth. But there it is distributed with regard to its distribution in the southern part of California and in Nevada. You see it's restricted to the Mojave Basin and Range area, ecoregion of Nevada. All right, if you're with me, I'll go through a few more of these groups and then end it a little early. This is the series Echinelli. I'll mention one or two of these. Cryptantha echinella. Echinella actually comes from the Greek echinos, meaning hedgehog or spine, and refers to these little spinulose processes on the nutlets that you can see. It also has tiny little corollas and gets into Nevada. You can see it is more common in California, but there are populations documented in actually all 4 of the ecoregions of Nevada. And the other member of this complex is called Cryptantha glomeriflora. That's a kind of unique Cryptantha in itself in that it's very tiny. The plant itself is small, has small corollas. The nutlets are described as asymmetric. It's a little hard to see here. And so because of that, it was classified with that Cryptantha affinis that I mentioned earlier, that is called the side group Cryptantha. But we now know, we just recently got sequence data, and we now know it's actually closer to this Cryptantha echinella. And it barely gets into Nevada. It's more common in the White Mountains and the eastern Sierras of California, but it is present in southwestern Nevada, in the central region, ecoregion. Okay, another interesting, I think, and distinctive group of Cryptantha is called the Flaccidae group. And this is named after Cryptantha flaccida, which does occur in Nevada. And Cryptantha flaccida has strigose stems. Interestingly, the corolla can vary in size from small to large. Its nutlets are fairly distinctive. If you look at these, they tend to be swollen at the base. And when you look at them from the back, they have this narrow apex, what we call an acuminate apex. But what is distinctive about this entire group are the trichomes, the hairs on the calyx are all recurved. I think you can see that clearly in your lower left. So all of the Flaccidae have recurved or hook-shaped calyx trichomes. Here's the distribution of Cryptantha flaccida. It barely gets into Nevada, just in that mostly Sierra Nevada section of the state. Otherwise, it's fairly widely distributed in Western North America. Now, the next one was a surprise to us. This is also in Nevada, and it is also in this Flaccidae group, but all of the Flaccidae except for this one have smooth nutlets. And so they've been classified together for decades, but this one is new. This is one we're going to throw into that group. And you can see the nutlets look nothing like Flaccida. They're papillate. They have these small little bumps we call papillae, as well as these scattered low tubercles. This is Cryptantha simulans, the pine Cryptantha, because you'll often find it in open coniferous forests. Has 4 nutlets per fruit, unlike Flaccida, which has 1. But look at that. The calyx trichomes are recurved. And people were aware of this for a long time, but they never made the connection that maybe this was actually closely related to the Flaccidae group. Now we know, we have genetic data to show that simulans actually should be grouped in with Cryptantha flaccida. And like Flaccida, it has a similar distribution in Nevada, found only in the Sierra Nevada for ecoregion of the state. And I mentioned earlier these two species, grandiflora and hendersonii. Both of them are apparently found in Nevada. And this is what I think has been called Cryptantha intermedia. Here's grandiflora, which has large flowers and usually one single smooth netlet, resembling Toriana, actually. But grandiflora has very large flowers, and it does have trifurcate cymules that you can see there. There's a close-up of the netlets. Here is where it's distributed. It's found both in the Sierra Nevada section and the northern section, ecoregion of Nevada. You can see there. A little bit north. It's more common in Oregon and Idaho and Washington. And hendersonii is a close relative. Both of these were classified as varieties of Cryptantha intermedia because they both have trifurcate cymes. They both have large corollas. Hendersonii has a very different nutlet that you can see in the lower right. Similar in size and shape to grandiflora, but very different in sculpturing pattern. It's papillate and tuberculate. And there's one form of it that is what we call spinulose, similar to Cryptantha echinella. And I just got type material from Walter Fertig at Washington State Herbarium, and it looks very similar to this. So this has been synonymized with hendersonii by most workers, but we're going to see if it's different in other respects. So there's the distribution of hendersonii, kind of similar to what we see in grandiflora, and similar in distribution in Nevada. So both of those are close relatives to one another. And like I said, I think are both misidentified as intermedia in the collections. Now, I will mention this one, and then I'll skip ahead a little bit. This is one series that's easy to recognize, the series Pterocaryi. And look how distinctive that is. Oh, virtually all of them, all but one species, are found in Nevada, all in red. This one's found in Nevada. This is Cryptantha cycloptera. Cycloptera means circle wing, actually. And you can see that it does have a very broad wing encircling the body of the nutlet. That's Cycloptera. This is another species, Cryptantha pterocarya. Pterocarya means winged fruit. And Cryptantha pterocarya typically has heteromorphic nutlets. I showed you that earlier, with one without a wing and three with a wing. The wing is very broad and tends to be lobed like this. Cycloptera and Pterocarya used to be classified as the same species in the genus Cryptantha, the species Cryptantha pterocarya, but we separated them. We had good evidence for that. Cryptantha pterocarya has varieties of its own. There's variety Pterocarya, and there's variety Perpusii, which has much smaller nutlets, the wings being very narrow in shape. And we found this form of Cryptantha pterocarya which is homomorphic. All four nutlets look alike. So one other variety is variety Stenoloba. The type species actually was collected in Nevada. So that's sort of a Nevada plant. It has much larger nutlets and much larger calyces. That's Stenoloba. And there's Perpusii over to the left. So here's how all of these are distributed in the state of Nevada. You can see some trends. Cycloptera is in purple, and that is only found in the Mojave ecoregion of Nevada, as is variety Stenoloba of Cryptantha pterocarya. So you can definitely see some trends there in distribution. Cryptantha pterocarya variety Pterocarya is more widespread in the state. And Perpusii is just found in the western part of the state. It just gets over into Nevada. It tends to be found in escarpment areas of California. So this series of Cryptantha is a little easier to distinguish from others. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit I think I will show you this one. This is a series that's kind of interesting. Cryptantha nevadensis and Scoparia both occur in Nevada. And nevadensis has really long calyces, long and thin, but very different from Barbitra, excuse me, in that it has only strigostems and a rather different nutlet morphology. The nutlets are lanceolate in shape and have upwardly pointing tubercles. This is pretty typical. But a close relative of nevadensis is Scoparia. They differ in plant habit. Nevadensis is more vine-like in habit. Scoparia is more erect. But look, Scoparia is also spinulose, but very different from Echinella. The spinules are upwardly oriented, a little bit longer than Echinella, and the nutlet shape is different. So this is distribution of these two species in Western North America. Scoparia in purple, nevadensis in orange. You can see nevadensis is more widely distributed in the southern part of the state. Scoparia occurring more in the middle and northern part of the state, also north of Nevada. Okay, and I'm running a little out of time, but I'll just kind of go through these a little bit quickly. Cryptantha finleri here, Cryptantha kelsiana here, and Cryptantha recurvata are Cryptantha in this series that is called the Texani. And these are all similar to one another. They all have a thickened calyx midrib. They differ in some nutlet features, but there you can see their distribution. Kelsiana there's only one collection found in Nevada, that red dot in the southwest part of the state. The other two, recurvata is much more common in Nevada. Finleri is found in the northern part of Nevada, a little more common east and in the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so those are the Cryptantha of Nevada, 28 species. Went through a few of them quickly, but you get a flavor, I think, for some of the patterns that we look for with respect to nutlet morphology, the features that we use to identify these, to name these, to circumscribe them. I wanted to mention just a couple more things in my presentation. And I did mention that many of the Cryptantha species occur in North America. And this is one thing that I've been studying. And my colleagues and I published a paper in 2017 on this interesting distribution pattern of Cryptantha, many of them occurring in South America, like I said. And we actually have 18 examples, 17 to 18 examples of Cryptantha that were dispersed by long distance transport from all of them from North America to South America. So this diagrammatically shows 18 different times Cryptanthas were dispersed, probably by birds traveling long distance. You know, some birds can travel thousands of miles without stopping. We think that's probably how they were dispersed originally. And they were dispersed as recently as 300,000 years ago, or as long ago as 17 million years ago in the popcorn flower group. So 18 different times, all north to south, with one possible exception, which could have been south to north. One of the things we're going to study more in the future is what changes occurred in ecological factors when this dispersal occurs. And my former student, Mackenzie Mabry, worked on this for her master's thesis and published a paper on it. Something we want to look at a little more closely, maybe do niche modeling in terms of the specific ecoregions, what I'm kind of getting at with these ecoregions. Where do Cryptantha sort in their ecological habitat in both continents? And finally, we want to take a look at some changes that occur when they get to South America. Some of the Cryptantha and other members of our group undergo some changes. They can become perennials, whereas all North America Cryptantha are annuals. They can exhibit polyploidy, a doubling or tripling of the chromosome number. And like I mentioned before, they can be cleistogamous. The only cleistogamous Cryptantha in the world are in South America. So if you're interested in this, I have a website actually tabulating the examples of American amphitropic disjuncts. We have actually 237 examples of these that we have documented and more coming. And I also have a website on the popcorn flowers. Some of you may be aware of this, but keep it in mind with a lot of pictures and nomenclatural information of all of the 300 plus popcorn flower species. The last thing I want to mention, if you're an iNaturalist observer, if you do an iNaturalist observation of Cryptantha, it's vital that you take close-ups. They're hard to identify from most iNaturalist photos. You need to take a good close-up of the stem, of the corolla, of course, maybe with a ruler, of the fruiting calyx, the mature calyx, and most importantly is try to get a close-up of the nutlets. If you try to put some nutlets in the palm of your hand and photograph them as best you can, we might be able to identify them. This is a particularly good iNaturalist observation taken by Jerry Carr. There's his iNat handle, Kupaoa. And I was able to identify this right off the bat as Cryptantha hendersonii. And he agreed with me. He had great close-up magnifications of the nutlets, as well as parts of the stem. He does really nice photographic images. So with that, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. Sorry if I went over too much, but these are some QR codes if you want to photograph those of our websites and our SDSU Biodiversity Museum. So with that, I'll stop sharing, and welcome any questions you might have. It's always
Thank you very much. You can't hear them clapping, but I can
Okay.
see them clapping.
Well,
But,
and some of you realize it's always weird giving a Zoom presentation when you can't hear anything or see people, so you don't know what's going on with your audience. But anyway,
Exactly. But
okay.
I'm going to do is, it looks like Emma and Jerry are there.
Okay.
And we'll see if they've got any questions.
Yeah, Michael, wonderful presentation. Couple of things. Yes, Plagiobothries, which is now Saunia glomerata, is endemic to Nevada.
Good, you know that. Okay.
It occurs on altered andesite, which is a kind of a light colored formation around here. And it basically occurs in a circle around Reno and gets within a couple of miles of California. But we've looked in California on those sort of habitats and we have not turned it up.
Okay, yeah, call it an endemic. Like I said, I think I found one specimen collected a long time ago, 100 years ago, near Mono Lake in California, but it's not been confirmed. We'll just call it a Nevada endemic.
Yes,
Its soil type is different, geology is different.
correct. There was a specimen, Mary D. Decker had identified one from somewhere down in her neck of the woods around Bishop. And I saw the specimen and it was not glomerate, it was his.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
The question I have is your maps, were those taken from all specimens you've seen or were those from CCH2?
Those were mostly from CINET, so they're a little bit limited. I thought CINET might have a better representation of Nevada plants. A lot of the California herbaria are also port their data to CINET. So I simply plotted them out, color-coded them, and then superposed that little map boundary of Nevada with the ecoregions on top of it. I added the ecoregions just recently. I thought that would be fun to look at to see if there were some trends. But that's where the data come from. It would be better if you did a really detailed study to combine all records of, definitely the CCH2, the Consortium of Northwestern Herbaria, and so forth.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's comments. Charlie, I guess we turn it to Emma or Charlie here.
Well, Charlie, I'll just say, has anyone in the room got any questions? If you do, if you want to come up and ask them, It was fascinating. I'm
Okay.
pleased to see your pictures because those things are tiny. I mean, those were millimeter bars, weren't they? And so thank you for all those photographs. I shall go to your website to see it because, you know, I just look and I think, oh, okay, it's that species, and then don't really try and go any, I mean, not species genus, don't try and go any further. It's fascinating.
Good, good. Yeah, check out the website if you need help with identification. They can be difficult to identify.
Yeah.
I'm better with specimens in front of me rather than, field images, but eye naturalist observations can be tricky. But yeah, we have a lot of nutlet jokes as well, but I won't go into that.
Okay. So it looks like Marcus may have a question, and we also have a question in the chat.
Okay.
So first, let's go to Marcus in Southern Nevada.
Yeah, I had a question. I was reading, Johnson's treatment of, the North American Cryptantha, and he talked about how a lot of Nevada and Utah specimens are fasciated. And I haven't come across this, and I haven't seen like an herbarium specimen of it. Do you have like experience seeing these?
Occasionally, I've seen it a couple of times. I think I saw it in Cryptantha muricata, and I know my colleague John Rebin just got a specimen of a fasciated Cryptantha. I forget what species it is.
Do we know what causes it?
Excuse me?
Do we know what causes the growth form, the fasciation?
No, not, and that's true. I don't know much about fasciation. That seems to be true. We don't really know what causes it in most species unless you have more information about it. You'll see it in a variety of plants sometimes. It'll just pop up in unexpected places. Of course, you'll see cacti that are fasciated. I think it's very rare in Cryptantha. I've only seen it once or twice in the field.
Okay.
And like I said, but it's interesting. He mentioned they were more common in Utah.
In Nevada and Utah is specifically what he said. And he said that it became common.
And you haven't run across it in Nevada much yourself?
I have not. No.
Okay, interesting. I'll look out for that. And what we need to do is collect it when we see it. Botanists tend to ignore things like that or just say, hey, that's a deformity. But we need to collect it as well as the so-called normal form. We've seen other weird forms of Cryptantha. One that, we've seen Cryptantha that just don't seem to have any flowers. They proliferate vegetatively with many, many bracts along the stem. We can't even identify the species, but they do seem to be Cryptantha. It's also rare.
Okay. And I'm still going to be on the lookout for that Acromoricata that we talked about.
Yeah. I hope you find it. It's got to be in Nevada. We got to find Nevada. Okay.
So we have a question from Jeanette Perry down at the test site, and it is: if you see a Cryptantha flowering, how many days later should you go back to check on it for nutlets? Maturation rate, in other words.
Yeah. And that is a difficulty with identifying Cryptantha. You really want to try to get mature nutlets. If it's just beginning to flower, I wouldn't even collect it unless I really needed documentation of what was there. I would go back at probably a couple of weeks after it started flowering. Maybe probably after 2 weeks, there would be nutlets forming. But sometimes you'll find it in flower and immature fruits forming. You'll see that the corollas have fallen off down below and it's beginning to form fruits, and the nutlets are kind of green. They're not brownish. Often we can get enough features from those, from the sculpturing morphology to identify it. But it's always best to have mature nutlets. So I would say in general, if it's just starting to flower, try to come back a couple of weeks afterwards, maybe 3 weeks, but a couple of weeks ought to do it. That's my pat answer to that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and Jim Andre had told me if you collect the more immature nutlets, the green ones, that you can actually let them sit for a little bit longer, in your office, and then look at them under the microscope. Okay.
I've never tried that actually. Just let them sit for a while.
Maybe if you need to see like the tubercles and other features, sometimes it's easy to just leave them in your office for a few days and then look at them.
Okay, so they'll actually mature a little bit, just sitting there. Okay, I guess you could collect it, put it in a jar of water, and it might continue.
Oh, right.
Curing. Yeah, yeah. If you had to do it, if you had to collect, that's a good idea, actually. I have
Yeah.
to try that if I need to collect that.
Okay, we have also Amy Ruck up here. I've grown Amsinckiia tessellata,
Oh,
tessellata in Smith Valley, Western Nevada, in a seed increase plot where some plants exhibited
oh, really? Okay.
fascination. The
Mm-hmm.
seed originated from the Mojave region.
Hey,
So,
okay. I have
so
not seen Tesla myself. That was fascinating. That is fascinating, not to be, no pun intended. Um, that's cool. So the seed were collected in the Mojave ecoregion. Okay, interesting. So yeah, be on the lookout for any, in the wild, I suppose. I don't know if that would be a function of, I don't know what would be the cause. So that is, like I said, I'm ignorant about what causes fasciation. If anybody has a little more detail about that, any studies that have been done, it's been speculated to be caused by an insect laying an egg there, a virus, a bacterium, a fungus, or just some mutation, somatic mutation that causes the meristem to become more linear as opposed to radially symmetric. Okay,
okay.
cool. That's neat. Good to know.
And Chloe Novak said, I've seen a lot of Cryptantha galls that seem to be undescribed.
Well, uh, I have to say that I have not seen many Cryptantha galls at all. So here's what would be great to do. We know we have next to no information about gall formation in our group altogether. I've seen some in Amsinckiinae more commonly, but Cryptantha here that I've run across very uncommonly. But what I'd like, if anyone is interested in this, it would be great to, if you collect plants, to actually collect a specimen for which you can identify the Cryptantha species. And then if you have an entomologist or send specimens to an entomologist, get them identified. It would be fantastic to have that information, that linking of insect hosts, insect infestations with the plants themselves. We have nothing. And I think for other plants, galls are known, what species actually cause them. For a lot of the common desert species, there's actually books out there. Cryptanthas, to my knowledge, are not known. So I'd be real curious, Chloe, about that. And if you ever see one, at a minimum, try to photograph it. And, those galls, maybe an entomologist would be familiar with the gall shape, but sometimes you actually have to let them mature and see what comes out. Cool. That's it.
Exactly. Yep. Cool. Do we have any other, do we have any other questions? It looks like Emma may have another question and perhaps Marcus, so we can go back to them.
Coming up to ask a question.
Howdy.
Hi.
Are there any known evolutionary benefits to heteromorphic seeds, nutlets, compared
Yeah.
to morphic?
Yeah, we think it has to do with dispersal, obviously. And there are two theories about this. So let's look at Cryptantha pterocarya that has one nutlet that is not winged and three that are this broad wings. So the three that have wings are released from the fruit easily. They fall out of the fruit. The one odd nutlet typically is firmly attached to that gynobase. It is resistant from being dispersed. So it's going to tend to stay in that calyx. Now, let's think about what's going on. It could be that we think it's obviously an adaptation to hedge your bet so that some of the propagules will be dispersed long distance, others will stay near the parent. Other plants will do that, like a good example is cacao, where some of the propagules stay near the parent plant, others are dispersed and in fact sea dispersed. Okay, so here are the two scenarios. The 3 that are released might be blown by the wind. So they might be wind dispersed long distance. The one that remains attached may be just remain right near the parent. It'll fall near the parent. You're hedging your bets. You grew where that parent was. You should be able to grow there, but you got to have some adaptations for long distance dispersal. So that's selected for as well. But the other scenario is that the one that remains attached is surrounded by a typically bristly calyx that could be picked up by an animal, like a bird. That might be the propagule unit, the bristly calyx, with a nutlet inside of it, attached to the under feathers of a bird. The other 3 are released. They're not going to be dispersed by that bird unless they're ingested. We don't think that occurs in almost any of these amphitropic plants. We think it's all on the outside of the bird. So you see my point? We don't know which scenario actually works. We suspect the calyx scenario is probably what happened with, between the continents, but we don't really know. So do you need a PhD? That would be something that would be great to study in a lot of these heteromorphic Cryptantha and Johnstonella. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. I love one. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Marcus, what you got up?
Not much down here other than, I'd like to second Chloe's vote that we need a Nevada Cryptantha poster.
Okay. I may be able to do that. I am actually working on I actually have produced a poster of the Southern California Cryptantha and relatives that you may have seen. We are actually producing posters of all popcorn flowers in North America. Okay. So there are 8 of them. Well, actually, there's 7 of them. So one poster is all the Plagiobothris, one is all the Cryptantha, 2 of them are the Oriocaryas, and then the others are the other taxa. So I will try to do that. The Cryptantha of Nevada, that might be doable, or even the popcorn flowers of Nevada, whatever I could swing. All of the ones that I talked about this evening. I'll work on that. And you can sell them at your Native Plant Society meetings. About that.
That's fabulous.
Excellent. Okay, I have one more announcement that came up. I got it in email while we were doing this from Tiffany Pereira and it's not related to the meeting other than she says, sorry, I can't be there, but they want to share the Mojave Desert Seed and Seeding Guide, a new resource created in collaboration with the California Bureau of Land Management to support conservations across the Mojave Desert, featuring 86 priority restoration species. This guide focuses on seeds and young seedlings, making it one of the first of its kind. It will assist land managers, researchers, and restoration specialists in identifying natural regeneration, analyzing soil seed banks, and guiding restoration projects. I'll put the information for this as well as Michael's information on the website and his email all in the email I send out with the link to the recording of tonight's meeting, if that's okay with everyone. This is good.
That's
Back
great.
to you, Michael.
I'm sorry?
I said back to you or Emma,
Okay.
one or the other.
Great. Chloe's got the link for the guide that Tiffany was talking about in the chat.
Okay, so anyway, thank you for inviting me. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of these popcorn flowers. We love studying them. There's still so much to study. Like I mentioned, there's still new species out there. We're just still discovering. Some of them are reinvestigating what we already know. Some are just new discoveries. So still quite a few out there. And the South American ones still need a lot of work if anybody's interested in that ever. But it's been a fun group to work on and, coming at it from different angles. But my other colleagues, Mackenzie Mabry, who's at University of Florida now, Matt Williams and Kristen Hassenstaub are at Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, are also very interested in the group. They do phylogenetic work. Of course, you know Jim Andre. He and I published that paper together. He knows Cryptanthas very well himself. So it's a fun group. So do some INAT observations if you're interested and try to photograph those nutlets, like I said. And, you know, if anybody can collect them, I'd be welcome to accept any duplicates and do my best to identify them. Herbarium collections.
Thank you very
was
much,
fun.
Michael. It's been fabulous, very informative. I've enjoyed it. Been
Okay.
glued to the screen, so thank you. And there've been a number of people that, as they've had to leave, have said thank you and very interesting. So
Yeah. Thank
good.
you.
It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Too. So thank you very much. It was wonderful, fascinating, great. Picture.
Okay.
So
Thanks for listening. And Marcus, I'll try to make it to your herbarium and look at your Cryptantha sometime.
Perfect. I'd love to have you out here.
Okay, let's do that. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Plans in the
Have a great
work.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Charlie, I guess we're gonna adjourn and turn everything off.
Wait a minute. Don't turn everything off. Let me do my housekeeping. You can turn yourself off, but don't turn me off.
Oh, no, we can turn ourselves off. Okay. We can leave.
Okay. I will end the meeting now. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.